Hey everyone, Rusty, aka Cutaplug here, and in this video I'm going to talk about getting permission to metal detect private property and knocking people's doors. So, walking up to a complete stranger's door of a residential house and knocking on it and asking them if you can dig in their yard, essentially, but that's not quite how we word it. So, I'm going to go out and knock 10 doors live for you guys and record the responses of property owners. So that way you can actually hear what people say and how they react when I ask them. So you'll get a better understanding of how it works if you've never done it before. This video is part of a 10-part training course that I offer on metal detecting, and the course shows you everything from the essentials all the way through to my exact strategies that I use for finding lots and lots of silver coins and finding multiple silver coins in a single day. So this is one video out of 10, and there's over 3.5 hours worth of content in the secrets course. So if you like this video, definitely check out that course. There's a link to it in the description. So sites that are private property where you need permission are some of the best places to hunt because they haven't been gone over that much most of the time. So a lot of people that metal detect, they don't like knocking doors or asking permission, but that opens up an opportunity for you if you have the guts to do that. So I think the best method to get permission is to ask in person. So if you have an option of sending a letter in the mail or just knocking the door, I would go and knock the door and try to find the people and ask them in person. If you're unable to ask face-to-face, then I would call, email, or send a letter in that order, because it's a lot easier to just throw a letter away or delete an email than it is to tell somebody over the phone or face-to-face, no, you can't metal detect my property. If you don't know how to find people, check with your local assessor's office, your clerk, or talk to a realtor. They can help you find the owner of a property if you don't know how to do that. And usually it's pretty easy. A lot of cities have an online assessor's website where you can actually search an address and look up the property owner that way. Always try to reach the property owner or the person in charge. So you want to avoid the gatekeeper or somebody else asking for you. An example of that is you might call like an apartment complex and you get the secretary, and if you tell the secretary what you're doing and ask what you want, the secretary will say, okay, let me ask the property manager. And if the secretary asks the property manager, it's going to be much more likely that the property manager is going to say, oh, just tell him no. And then the secretary tells you, no, she said you can't, or he said you can't. So if you can avoid the gatekeeper or secretary or whoever, and you can go straight to the source, you have a much better chance of getting permission. So how do you ask for permission? And I've given 5 steps here that I think are necessary, and they're in order, and they're just really simple. The first step is just tell them who you are. So hi, my name is Rusty. Tell them what you do. I metal detect for a hobby, and I look for old coins, or I look for relics, I look for lost trinkets, whatever you want to tell them. Number 3 is tell them why you chose the property. So you can tell them, I look for old houses like yours, or on this old map there used to be a school here, there used to be an old house here on this topo map. So it's a good idea to tell them why you're there. And then number 4, you just straight up ask permission. Would you care if I went over your yard with my detector? And at that point they'll give you a yes or no, and you can try to convince them if you need to. So keep it short and simple. Be kind, genuine, and confident. So when you first start doing this, you're gonna be nervous maybe, and you're not gonna really know what to say. So it's a good idea to practice a sentence, several times beforehand so it comes out more easily. If people look at you and they see that you're nervous, they can hear it in your voice and they can see it in your face that you're kind of awkward and nervous, then they're going to be more likely to turn you down. But if you come to their door and you're a kind, genuine person and you're confident in what you're saying, they'll be more likely to let you metal detect the yard. And the more you practice, the more comfortable you will get at it. And after you practice for a while, it becomes very easy. You just walk up there, you ask for permission, you get a yes or no, and you move on to the next house. As far as sending an email, this is an email that I sent to get permission to go to a big mansion. It was a real honey hole. I found 22 silvers in 3 visits, and my dad came with me on those visits as well, and he found multiple silvers, 10 or 15 at least, just himself. So I located the property owner, I connected with him on LinkedIn, and then this is a message that I sent to him. Thanks for accepting my invitation on LinkedIn. My dad and I enjoy the hobby of metal detecting. It's a great way for us to get exercise and spend time together. After researching some old maps, I noticed the property at blank has been around since the early 1800s. Is there someone we can contact to get permission to metal detect there? We've been enjoying this hobby for many years and know how to retrieve targets in a way that you would never know we were there. We'd be happy to show you anything we find and even donate a few items to the property if you'd like. Thanks for your time. And the last part of this I added on there because it's kind of like you have one shot. The part where I say we'd be happy to show you the finds and even donate some items. When I say donate items, I'm talking about like makeup, compact cases, old 1930s lipstick cases, maybe some belt buckles or horseshoes, some items that might be interesting to the house, but I don't give up my silver coins. Ever. If I have to give up half my silver coins to hunt a place, I'm going to move on to the next place. But this is the email that I use when I send it out. I might modify it a little bit depending on the situation, but it's just really short and simple and polite, and it has worked very well. So for this video, I wanted to go out and knock 10 doors without really editing anything out of it. So I didn't want to knock like 20 doors and only show you guys the good responses. I wanted to knock exactly 10 doors and show you every single response I got. So I called Dad up and I said, hey, you want to come knock some doors with me? He said, sure. And basically we spent 2 days and I knocked several doors and we detected some residential houses. So I recorded the audio of every conversation that I had, of me asking and their response, and that's what I'm going to play you. Hey, my name's Rusty. My dad and I go metal detecting as a hobby. Look for old houses. Hey! I was wondering if you'd care if we went to your yard to look for old coins and stuff. Uh-huh. Okay, appreciate it. So, she said, in this yard? I said, uh-huh. And she said, yeah, I don't care. And then I said, appreciate it, and then I go and detect. And she had a little toddler running around. He was really cute, and he was following me around. And most kids are pretty annoying, but he was so cute that I didn't really mind, and he stayed out of the way, so it was fun. But we detected that yard, and we found some decent stuff. I know I found at least a barber out of there, and some wheat pennies and stuff. So, all right, the next house was just down the street from it, and it had a pretty good sized yard. Just another old residential house. Hey, my name's Rusty, and my dad and I go metal detecting, look for old coins as a hobby, and we just look for old houses. Would you care if we went to your yard?
No, I don't care.
Okay, cool. So she just says, no, I don't care. Really nice. And these were pretty easy. The first four I got a yes on. And I was thinking, man, I hope I get some no's in here to show you guys, because I really just wanted to knock 10 doors, but I wanted to get a good combination of yeses and nos. So I saw this huge house, and there were big trees. It was well manicured. I thought, this is a really good house to get a yes at, so play this one. Hey.
What's that?
My name's Rusty, and my dad and I go metal detecting as a hobby. Look for old coins and stuff. We look for old houses like this. Would you mind if we went through your yard?
Help yourself.
Okay, appreciate it.
Okay.
And all he said, it was an older guy, he said, help yourself. So that was an easy one, and that was a huge yard. We detected there for a couple hours, and Dad found a solid gold pocket watch. And the watch was really deteriorated. It was an Elgin, and it was in a really bad condition, all rusted on the inside. But that solid gold outside, we cut that off and weighed it, and it was worth about $150. So really good find. Next one is just another old residential house, and the person that was living here, it was a guy that was a foreigner, and it's hard to hear what he says, but at the end he says, no problem. So usually when a foreigner is saying okay, they say no problem, and that's what he says. Hey, my name's Rusty, and my dad and I, we go metal detecting as a hobby. We look for old coins and stuff, and we just look for old houses and try to find old coins. Would you care if we went through your yard? No problem. Okay. No problem. Alright, so now I start to get a couple no's, and the next one I'm going to play for you. This is a person I could have probably converted to a yes, because I'm going to ask her, and the question kind of throws her off, and she goes, well, and what you can do, if you see that they're on the edge of saying yes, then you just interrupt them, and you say something to convince them. But most of the time, if you say something to kind of push them over to the yes side, then they'll let you go. So this is somebody I think I could have definitely got a yes from if I had tried to, and I'll let you hear it. Hey.
Hi.
My name's Rusty, and my dad and I go metal detecting as a hobby. We look for old houses, and then we go look for old coins. Would you care if we went through your yard?
Ah. I don't know. We're kind of antiquers ourselves, and I know Jim had in mind doing that at some time, but never got around to it.
Oh, really?
I'm going to turn you down since he isn't here to ask him.
Okay, that's fine. So that one was a no. And I really didn't try to convince her because I wanted to get some no's for you guys, honestly. But if you get a person like that that's thinking about it, you can usually convince them. The next example I'm going to show you is one of those people, and they just give a hard no, just a straight up no. And most of the time, those kind of people, you're not going to convince them no matter what you say. So if I run into that situation, I usually just say, okay, thanks for your time, and I'm out of there to the next house. Hey.
Yeah, what's up?
My name's Rusty, and my dad and I go metal detecting as a hobby.
You what?
Metal detecting. We look for old coins and stuff. You care if we go through your yard?
No, I just seen you not.
Okay. That's fine. Have a good one. Well, he said, I just soon you not. So, the yard was a decent yard. It wasn't great. It wasn't terrible. So I just move on to the next house. So, on the next one, this guy has a little dog, and the dog runs out, so you can hear him getting the dog and stuff. But he says, yeah, you can go in my yard, but not up next to the house. He said, you can go over next to the road. There used to be an old bus stop there or something, and around those trees, you can go out there, but not close to my house. So this was kind of a partial yes. Hey, my name's Rusty, and my dad and I go metal detecting as a hobby. Oh, no.
Sitting there, you know, just don't go out.
Oh, yeah. So she might run
I think
off.
okay, your dad is metal detective?
Yeah, me and him go metal detecting just as a hobby. Look for old coins, like, go around old houses, and I just want to go around the house.
Well, maybe not around the house, but the sign got knocked down, but he wasn't.
Oh, really?
Pole.
Huh.
Exactly.
That light pole there?
Yeah, power pole.
Just on that side of it?
Yeah. Actually, you can still see where the concrete.
That's cool. Okay, so where's the... Go from that pole that way, I guess?
Well, I mean, kind of. I'd rather you didn't get up by the house, but you want to check out the
Like a front yard out by the
bus stop.
Okay.
From the trees to the street.
Cool. Okay, appreciate it. So the next one, this guy is actually renting the house. It's an older guy, and he has a really old dog that I think is blind, and the dog was just barking like crazy, and he says that I'd have to ask the property owner. So if I thought it was going to be a really good yard, at that point when he says you'd have to ask the property owner, I'd say, okay, great, can I have his phone number? And what I might do is also say, if the property owner says okay, it's okay with you, right? And the guy would probably say yes. So at that point, I have the number, have a yes from the person that's renting it. So I call the property owner and I say, hey, I talked to your tenant over here at this address, and I go metal detecting as a hobby. He said it'd be okay if I went through the yard as long as you were okay with it. And then the property owner will likely say yes. Hey. How you doing?
He's harmless.
Oh, it's all right. My name's Rusty. And, my dad and I go metal detecting as a hobby. Look for old coins and stuff.
I don't
Oh, you don't have any, huh? Do you want us to look through your yard, or would you mind if we went and looked through your yard, or?
No, I don't think it's right here. I don't know if no.
Oh, okay. You just rent it? Yeah. Well, all right.
Thank you.
Have a good. Okay, the next one, this is a door I knock, and I ask him permission. He says those aren't my trees, they belong to O'Reilly. So, once I found that out, his yard was like 8 foot wide, so at that point I was done there. If he had a big yard, I would ask him, can I go, would you care if I go through your yard then, or your part of it? But he really didn't even have a yard, so the big trees actually belong to somebody else. Hey, my name's Rusty, and my dad and I go metal detecting as a hobby. Look for old coins and stuff, right? Houses. Would you care if we went around these big trees and stuff here?
Those trees aren't my yard.
They're not. They belong to O'Reilly's. Okay. Yeah, I'll go holler at them there. Okay, so the next one, this is a weird guy with his younger brother, and it was a big house and a pretty good sized yard, and they were actually pulling in right as me and Dad pulled in the property behind them. So this is a good example of try to get to the source, try to go directly to the property owner, and don't ask somebody else. Because what happens here is we pull up behind him, the guy gets out of his car, it's a younger guy, and I knew right then, okay, either this guy is renting it with some other students, or he's a child of somebody that lives here, because it was a gigantic house. So I asked him permission, and he basically goes in, he asks whoever's in charge and comes out, and of course they're going to say no, because they don't have to say no to my face directly. But it's kind of funny because he screams at his brother because he's trying to lock the door and, you know, turn on the alarm on the car, but his brother has the door open, so he screams something at him, and yeah, he's kind of crazy. Would you care if we went around the yard? Or?
Well, I'm not the owner of the place, so 1 second, I'll come.
Okay, thanks.
Hold it! No. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I'm sorry about the
Okay.
Alright, you have a good one. Thanks.
So I cut out the middle part because there was quite a little, about a minute or two where he was inside doing something, and it was just silent. So I cut that part out, but basically he went in, came back out, and he said, I'm going to have to turn you down or whatever. So there was a no-go. But out of 10 properties, 5 were a yes. So that's 50% of the people gave us permission to hunt their properties. And I honestly think if I tried, I could have even got a 6 or 7 out of 10 over those 2 days out of those 10 properties. And that's typical. 50% or higher yes rate is typical when you're knocking doors. So quite a bit of the time I get up in the 75% range. So anywhere from 50 to 75% is really good. And you might get lower. I mean, you might only get 2 out of 10 houses or 3 out of 10, but it averages out to be probably about 50%, I'd say. So you can find a lot of places to hunt that way. And you have to go into it with the mindset that you're not doing anything wrong, because I know it might seem strange to go up to somebody's house and knock on the door and ask to dig in the yard, but statistically the numbers tell me that it's normal. If 50% or more people say sure, go ahead, then I know I'm not doing anything off the wall strange, because if I was, then everybody would tell me no and think I'm crazy. So don't get it in your mind that you're doing something odd or strange, and if somebody treats you badly or if they act like you're weird for doing that, then just know that most people know what metal detecting is, and most people are perfectly fine with it. And if they're not, they'll just tell you no, and no harm done. So some types of answers that you can get. First type is a hard no without a reason. So if somebody gives you a straight up no, then most of the time I'll say move on to the next house. Unless the site looks extremely good, I would just move on. You're probably not going to get somebody to change their no to yes. If somebody says no and they give you a reason why, then you can reply back with a solution to the problem. So if somebody says, no, I don't want you digging up my yard, then you know the problem. Now you got to give a solution to it. You just say, well, actually I cut a really small plug, and I've been doing this for a long time. I'm really careful, and you wouldn't even know I was here. So if you could come up with a solution, you might be able to convince them to let you go. So if a site has a lot of potential, then you can try to convince them by offering to show them what you find, or even offering them half of the finds. And this is something that I never do, but I know some people do it. I'm kind of like a metal detecting hoarder. I like keeping all my silver, and I like counting all the silver and keeping it. I can't imagine giving away any of my silver coins, even though it might only be worth $3 or $5 for a couple of silver dimes. I don't want to give any of them away. And if all else fails, you can try to tell them something like, I was really hoping that you'd say yes. Is there anything I can do to convince you otherwise? So if you have a site that you were really excited about, that you know is going to be awesome, this is kind of a last-ditch effort to get them to say yes, is try to figure out why they won't let you. So no matter what happens, be polite and wish them a good day, because you might go back there eventually and ask again, or they could even change their mind. If you make business cards, it says, I find lost keys, gold rings, if you lose your wedding ring, call me. So you can hand out cards and kind of network with people, and if somebody loses a ring, maybe they will call you, and then you have an opportunity to metal detect their yard. And don't be afraid to go back after a while. So if there's a house that you really want to hunt, don't be afraid to go back in 6 months and ask again, because properties change ownership, and even if it's the same owner, they might have changed their mind and they might let you go if you come back and ask a second time. Don't go every week, don't stalk them, but once every 6 months or a year, I think would be perfectly fine. Something else you can do that will help you get permission is to name drop. And basically, my mom used to sell Kirby's, and she was really good at it. And then I tried to sell Kirby's for a few weeks when I was a teenager, and I didn't sell one. But one thing I learned from the salespeople is if you want to get into one house, you can drop the name of their neighbor, and they'll be more likely to give you permission to give them a demo. So suppose we metal detect one house and we get the person's name. After they say, sure, you can go through my yard, say, what was your name? And they'll tell you real quick. So you metal detect that yard, and then you knock the neighbor's door, and you say, hey, I just got done metal detecting, or you tell them what you do, you do your intro, and then you say, hey, I just got done doing Margaret's yard, and I was wondering if I could go through yours real quick. And they'll likely say yes. If they hear the name of somebody they know, or a neighbor, or something like that, they'll be more likely to give you a yes. You can also carry a signed waiver form in case somebody mentions getting sued, because there are some property owners that are kind of paranoid about that, and if you ask permission, they say, no, I don't want you to get hurt and sue me, then showing them a signed waiver might, give them confidence and get you permission. Showing people evidence like old maps, historical documents, or whatever you can find to support your reason for being there can also help you get permission. So this is something I do, especially with overlaid topo maps. Like I'll overlay a topo map, I'll get GPS coordinates for all the places, and then I'll print out a topo map that has all the little black dots. Whenever I walk up to a door and knock it, I have that in my hand already. I tell them what I do, and I say, I look for old houses, and this is an old map, and it shows on a map there used to be an old house here. And almost every time the people will be like, oh yeah, there used to be a house right there where that barn was, or there used to be a house across the road in that field. And then that's when you ask them if you can metal detect there, because they know who you are, they know why you're there, and then you ask them for permission, and usually it works pretty good if you show them, the house on the map. Don't carry your equipment to the door. Shave, look respectable, and something I'll do if I know I'm going to be knocking doors is try not to get my knees too dirty. So if I'm park hunting or out in the woods, I don't care. I'll get dirt on me from head to toe. But if I know I'm going to be knocking doors a lot, then I try to wear like knee pads, or just try not to kneel down if it's raining or muddy or something, because your knees will get really nasty quickly. And my strategy is to get in and get out as fast and efficient as possible. I don't really mess around with sending letters or sending emails or anything like that for the most part. If it's a place where the property manager is hard to come by, or they don't live at the residence, then I'll send an email or try to call them. But if it's just a residential house, I always just go up and knock the door. If the site doesn't produce a few wheat pennies or silver in the first hour, then I move on. So I'm pretty confident in my equipment and my abilities, And if I go to a site and I don't find any Wheaties or silver within the first hour, I just get out of there. If you're newer to metal detecting, that's not really a strategy I would recommend right off the bat. Until you've put several hundred hours on your machine, you know it well, and you know what its capabilities are. Once you know that, then you can just hit a site and get out of there. Otherwise, if you're new to the hobby, I would spend more time at different sites and get used to your machine and everything. So the secret to getting permission is just to do it. It's easier than you think, and you'll be pleasantly surprised at how many people actually say yes. So you should be able to get around a 50% or higher yes rate when you're knocking doors, especially after you get some practice. And if you have a fear of knocking doors, and most people do, then the key is just to not think about it and just force yourself to walk to the door. So don't sit there and think, oh, what are they going to say, or get nervous about it. Just shut your mind off completely and walk towards the door. And another thing that helps if you're going into a situation that's awkward or that you have fear about is to just think about what the worst thing is that can happen. So what's the worst thing that can happen if you go and knock somebody's door and ask permission? Pretty much they're going to say no. Well, what if they say no? Nothing's going to happen. You leave and you go to the next house. So when you go into the situation thinking that, think about the worst situation, and it won't kill you. So it makes it a lot easier to go and knock the door if you think of it that way. The more you do it, the less scared you're going to be, and the more confident you'll be, which leads to a higher yes rate. So once you get practice and you get to doing it a lot, it becomes second nature, and you just walk up there, knock the door like it's no big deal, and go on your way.